All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. My name is Brian, and I'm an alcoholic. I hope everybody had a nice 4th of July. A reminder that we record all speakers here, so if you want a copy of a past speaker or the present speaker, you can get a copy on a CD. If you want the speaker, for example, the speaker for tonight, you can get it next week, or you can get it at our sister group, which is a big book study up the street at Salem UCC Church. This group has a website and it has a Facebook group. If you have any anniversaries or any events that you want to post to the Facebook group or bring in a flyer and put it in the back, we encourage you to do that. A quick reminder that there's no smoking on church property. That's the church's policy. We're very privileged to have this beautiful facility to hold this meeting in, and that's really all that's asked of us, is that we keep smoking off the premises, keep the church property looking good. I guess that's about it. Nick's going to come up here and chair the meeting. Have a good time.
Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Nick and I am an alcoholic. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m. in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. until 7:30 right here. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Go ahead.
My name is Aaron.
Hey Aaron, welcome.
Patrick, not Paul.
What's up, Patrick? Hi, Eliza. Hello, welcome.
I'm Gary, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey Gary, welcome. Welcome. Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Excellent. Are there any announcements from the floor for the good of AA? All right. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big book and CDs, to those who can't afford them, can put donations on the table marked big book and CD donations. If you'd like a CD of any speaker, past or present, please see myself or Ron after the meeting. They're available free of charge. And with that, we have Maggie to come up and read the preamble.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And now I have Jillian coming up to read the steps.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I'm an alcoholic. Sorry. The 8 and 12 steps of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having a spiritual awakening. As a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. And then Nick.
We have a 7 tradition which states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'd like to pass the baskets. We have no dues or fees, but we do have expenses. This group provides many services, and your donations cover rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. Once again, there is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, to introduce our speaker, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, comes to us from Barnegat, New Jersey. From there is the Solution Speaker Group, Miss Becky L.
Walking up those stairs saying, "Don't fall, don't fall." That'll be a good intro. My name is Becky, and I am an alcoholic. And I want to thank the group for having me. And I do consider myself a friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, and I really like being introduced as such. Ron, I want to thank you for having me out. And we've had the good fortune to have you come down a few times, and it's always great to see you, and it's always great to be in Doylestown. I do have a sobriety date. It is August 31st of 2015. I do have a home group. It is There's a Solution Speaker Group. We do meet in Barnegat. Tonight is, we meet on Saturday nights, so I'm missing home tonight to come out with you guys. And I have a sponsor, and she knows she's my sponsor. Most times on any given day, I consider myself relatively sponsorable, which means I try to be transparent. For the first time in my life, there's another person on this planet that knows all of me. Good, bad, indifferent, ugly, pretty, all of it. And I have the honor and privilege of sponsoring women in this program. And I don't say that lightly because I don't take it lightly. I absolutely know that this thing is life or death for me and for them. And I treat it as such. But I'm really up high. I'm like trying not to be nervous. I'm an alcoholic, and I don't know if I was always an alcoholic. I don't know if I woke up one day and thought that today would be a really good day to blow up my life and just kind of like fell down that slippery slope, or if it was I was predisposed in my genes. I know that I spent a lot of time blaming my parents for everything that I came to find out was alcoholism. The first time I ever spoke at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, it was not like this, but it was a little go around the room type deal and sitting in the chairs. And after I spoke, somebody else, when they raise their hand and tell you usually how great you're doing, he said that I sounded like the poster child for ACOA. And I didn't have the good insight to be offended. I just thought that, and because it was all their fault. If you had my life, if you had my parents, if you had my fill in the blank, you would drink like I did. And not only would you drink like I did, but I'm doing good, darn it. Like, you would be worse than me. Like, I'm doing a really good job at keeping this thing together. It's like MacGyver with bubble gum and some, a Q-tip and some cotton, and it's all tied together in a pretty bow. And I'm just like, there ain't nothing to see here. I'm good. I did not come to Alcoholics Anonymous because I had a drinking problem. I came to, I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because you guys would not leave me alone about my drinking. And the problem for a drunk like me is that you are trying to take away the only thing in my life that makes everything else work. It's the bubble gum that holds that MacGyver thing together. You know, it's for me, booze from a very early age was the thing that made all you people make sense. It made you tolerable. You know, I probably would have committed homicide or suicide a long time ago if it were not for alcohol. You know, like, people should thank me, like, please, and, you know, like, come, but please come drunk. We like you better that way, you know? And I'm like, I've never, you know, attempted suicide or homicide while loaded, you know, but I've really come close a whole bunch of times, stone cold sober. You know, drinking's not my problem, sobriety is my problem. And I don't like it. I don't like my sober skin. I don't like how I feel when there is no lubricant between me and you. You know, I don't like how I feel raw. You know, I'm just like a clenched fist and a raw nerve, and you give me a drink and I just, you know, I can exhale. You give me a drink and I no longer care that you won't stop chewing, you know, or like that the way you talk, or, you know, like, oh my God, that story, you know, and I just, it softens, I don't know if it softens my edges in my mind because it's a perception thing, but I know it softens yours. You know, it just makes you more palatable, it makes you more tolerable, you know, and the problem is that drinking has always worked for me. Like when people, a lot of people say, you know, they came in because drinking quit working, and drinking never stopped working for me. When I first started drinking, what I got out of it, like I said, was that social lubricant. You know, I was this shy kid who hid in the corner and really, really, really wanted and needed attention, but hoped no one noticed me, if that makes sense. You know, like I absolutely need to be invisible, but I want you to think I'm really good at it, you know, and I want to be a part of, but I don't want to like actually walk into the center. I want the circle to kind of form around me, because then that's, you know, no effort, you know, and I'm just this shy, quiet little kid who mastered the art of invisible, which was a really good skill in my household, you know. If nobody sees you, they won't hit you, you know, and so I was really good at invisible. I was really good at staying under the radar, and I had a healthy fear of drugs and alcohol. It did not take a rocket scientist to realize that there was booze in the factor of every piece of broken furniture in my home. You know, it was obvious that booze was bad. You know, I was a dare kid. I was a children of the 80s. You know, just say no. Nancy Reagan made a lot of sense until I drank. And then she never made sense again. You know, like stone cold sober before my first drink. Why the heck would anyone ever do this to themselves? You know, why would you make your family cry? Why would you do this? Why would you do that? You know, I don't understand. And so as I grew up with a healthy fear of drugs and alcohol, I grew up with a, you know, immense fear of people, because there's just so much peopling involved with people. And so I was just this shy, scared kid. I did great in school. I got straight A's. It never occurred to me not to. You know, I just did what I was supposed to do just because I was supposed to do it. It was never on my radar not to be that way. And the only thing that I think I was afraid of more than drugs, alcohol, and what you know, and everything else that I already listed was what do you think of me? I have this absolute paralyzing fear of how I look to you. I have this absolute paralyzing fear that you can see through me and know I'm a fraud. You know, I have this absolute paralyzing fear that I'm going to be found out, and then you'll know I'm not enough. And then that circle that formed around me will just dissipate. You know, and it was the top fear on my inventory when I finally wrote one. Of, you know, not being enough. Enough of what? Enough of fill in the blank. You know, not pretty enough, not smart enough, not good enough, not this enough, not whatever enough. I'm just not enough. And when you know it, then you'll leave, and then I'll be alone. So I have this fear of what are you going to think of me? So that's what I bring to the table the first time somebody offered me a drink. And the what are you going to think of me person said yes. Of course, absolutely. What are you having? I don't know. What are you having? Okay, sounds good. That's my drink of choice. What are you buying me? Like from, you know, day 1 to day 3 million, you know, what are we having? Okay. And, I wish it was, a little rougher around the edges because I like to think I'm, savage. But it was, Bartles and James wine coolers. Like I said, it was the 80s. And it probably had an umbrella in it, darn it, and I drank that down. And if you'd asked me what was wrong with me 5 minutes before I took that drink, I probably would have just said, I don't know. What's wrong with me? I have no idea. But a lot. There's a lot wrong. And, but 5 minutes, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, I don't know, how long does it take for booze to get from your lips to your soul? I don't know. But in that amount of time, I knew everything that was wrong with me and every part of me that was broken because booze fixed it. It was the answer to every problem I never knew I had. It wasn't just that it made me able to talk to you, which I hear people say a lot of times at the podium, I could talk, I could this, I could that. I could. And if you were stuck and paralyzed with the amount of fear and social anxiety that I was at 8, the ability to speak was helpful. I was the kid that I was afraid to order a pizza on the phone because I thought the guy on the other end was judging me. I was absolutely paralyzed in this fear. I don't know what to say to you after hello. I might talk about the weather, but if we're inside, I don't even have that. So I'm just like, hi, my name is Becky, and then I try to run. And booze fixed that. But it didn't just that night, at my sister's keg party that we weren't allowed to have, which is probably why I was there. I threatened to tell. I have one older sister, and she was everything I ever wanted to be, meaning she could talk to people and wasn't afraid and pretty. So I take that drink, and it wasn't just that I could talk. It was that I was absolutely certain that you wanted to talk to me. Up until that time, I was probably 12 or 13, 7th, 8th grade. Up until that moment, I'd always been, stuck in self-centered fear. I didn't know that. I didn't have a name for it. But I'd always been stuck in me. I was always the center of my own universe. But once I took that drink, I became the center of yours as well. I was suddenly in your world and certain that not only was I in your world, I was the middle of your world. There's a whole chapter about that in the big book. That director that wants to be, or the actor that wants to be the director, and I was just in the middle. I had arrived. And the problem is that if you give me that kind of relief, I will pay any price for it. And on that day, booze worked for me, and what it did is it made me able to talk to you. On August 31st, 2015, it worked for me. It put me in a coma every day, so I didn't have to think, feel, or I didn't have to face the horror of the life that I had created. So booze always worked for me. I just didn't like I couldn't stand the consequences anymore of my sober skin. And on that first day, with the Bartles and James and the little, umbrellas and the alcoholic mother and the, drug addict, or the alcoholic father and the alcoholic parents, plenty of examples of what not to be. If you'd said to me, that I was going to pay for this, chasing this thing with the love and respect of every person that was ever stupid enough to care about me, and every car I ever drove, every relationship I ever had, every child, I gave away everything to chase a drink. I am the last owner of every car I've ever driven. They just don't survive me. I wreck them. I just wrap them around stuff and leave them on the side of the road and go find another one. And I do that with relationships too, drunk. I run them, whatever I'm using. Whatever people, whatever car, whatever thing, whatever. You're all just. I take you off the shelf and I use you. And I ride it till the wheels fall off and push it another 50 feet. That's how I wreck cars, and that's how I wreck lives when I'm actively in my alcoholism. And I don't see that. I'm absolutely certain that it's you always. It's never me. I'm the victim in all of this. And I believe that on a cellular level, to my core. But drinking wasn't always like that. If it was, I don't know if I would have. It started out, it felt fun. It was a relief. It was a good time. It was you know, I grew up in a little short town. We moved around a lot because my parents were outlaws. But, you know, we always, we lived in little beach communities and little shore towns, and because my father was a commercial fisherman. And so, like, you know, growing up was chasing booze on Friday, you know, thinking about the booze you were going to drink on Friday, on Monday, you know, and then the weekend warrior stuff turned into, like, why go to school Monday or Friday, you know, just stretch that weekend out. And I thought that was, like, to my credit, because I can still get good grades and not go to school. Well, that means I'm better than you, which I already know that I am. So you should give me extra credit for being able to do in 90 days what it takes all the rest of you people 180 days to do here, you know. But it wasn't long after I started drinking that, like, school no longer became a priority. Friends no longer became a priority, except the ones that would guarantee that I made it home safe, because I wasn't very good at that on my own right. The first time I ever decided that I should never drink again, I was like maybe 16 years old. Chasing booze, I wound up in a place that no 15, 16-year-old girl should be in, with a group of people that I didn't know, that no 15 or 16-year-old girl should be alone with. And I put myself in a position to be harmed that was really, really scary. And I had that moment of clarity that we talk about, enough to say that I had the realization that if I wasn't chasing booze, I wouldn't have put myself in a position to be harmed. So dang it, I'm never, ever, ever going to drink again. I'm just not. I'm not going to turn out like my mother. I'm not going to ever let somebody hurt me again. I'm not going to drink again. And that lasted until the next party. You know, that sounded really good on Sunday when I'm in trouble and I'm afraid and I'm facing consequences. I am the girl that cried sober. You know, I spent more time trying to get and stay sober since it occurred to me to stop drinking than I ever did before I got here. You know, I am not like any kind of, like, I walked in the door after I scraped up my knees the first time and said, thank God that is over, and just never drank again. From a very early age, maybe it's because from a very early age, I knew that booze didn't work for me the way it worked for other people. But from a very early age, from day zero, once I start, I can't stop. And from day zero, once I stop, it never makes sense to stay stopped. And I wind up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and you guys tell me that I'm suffering from a fatal progressive illness. And I think you're being really dramatic. I'm suffering from an uptight future ex-husband, you know, who doesn't like my extracurricular activities. You know, I suffer from, you know, a legal system that is clearly stacked against me. You know, I suffer from a lot of things, but alcoholism that's going to kill me is not one of them. And so I don't believe you. And because I don't believe you, I don't listen to you. And because I don't listen to you, I keep doing what I'm doing, which is getting loaded and getting relief. And by the end, by the end, when I come crawling back into Alcoholics Anonymous, because that's what I always do, you tell me I'm suffering from a fatal progressive illness that's going to kill me, and I say, when? Sign me up. Like, I'm not afraid of heaven, but this living thing really is overrated. You know, I don't know how to do this. You guys seem to know how to do this, and I just don't. And I would like to stop trying, please. You know, but by then, you know, I had this, you know, suicidal ideation in my back pocket at all times. And my prayers were something like, dear God, please save me or kill me, because I can't do this another minute. And that's what I bring you. But wrap that in a real angry bow, you know, because I was not ever happy to be here. I did not ever walk into the doors and say, thank God I made it back. You know, I walked in the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you guys welcomed me warmly, and I said, I can't believe I'm here again. I hate all you people. Because the one thing that I was always sure of is I was going to drink again. Because I'm not very good at learning from your experience, but I'm sometimes good at learning from my own, and the one thing that I know is that I get drunk. The one thing that I know is that no matter how bad on day zero, I want to be sober. no matter how bad on day 0, when you say, are you willing to go to any lengths, I know the answer to the test question. I say yes, even though I don't probably mean it. No matter how bad the desire or wish on day 0, no matter how much I really don't want to lose my children. I really don't want to hurt my family again. I really don't want to lose that job. I am constitutionally incapable of staying here, I think. But the problem is for a drunk like me and a chronic relapser, I hate that term, but if you're a chronic relapser like me, what happens is you just start to think that I'm different. I must be different. Because if I wasn't different, I think I'm doing AA. Like, I'm here, I'm drinking your coffee, I'm hitting on your guys, I'm eating your cookies, like I'm stealing your basket, but I'm here. I'm here. I show up and I do a U-turn in the parking lot and I get loaded and go, I'm here. Nail me to the seat and maybe I rehab really well. It's like wrap me in bubble wrap. I prefer sanitariums, the medication is better, but whatever. Like, I do treatment well. A couple weeks, clean me up, shake me off, feed me, and I come out ready to do battle, And then I walk into these rooms and it's again I gotta walk into these rooms, and I talk and you welcome me back and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad to be here, and I don't mean it. I'm not glad to be here. How is everything? Great. I love this recovery house I'm living in. My roommate, she snores, it's wonderful. It's great. I'm so happy. Yeah, public transportation, awesome, it's just, I love my life. I'm so grateful. Want to see my gratitude list? I wrote one, But all those things that I'm so grateful for on Friday, that gratitude list that I now carry in my, I've got that in my right pocket and my suicide plan in my left pocket, and I'm just, we'll see what's going to happen today, But all that stuff that I'm so grateful for on Tuesday when I'm sober, on Thursday, those dang kids, they just don't listen, and I'm their mother. What do you mean they don't want to they don't want to come see me? They used to throw a party for me when I'd get out of treatment, and now they don't answer the phone. I gave birth to them. And that boss that I was so grateful he didn't fire me, he does not appreciate me. Where's my accolades, and you're chewing again, that chewing thing, it's just, oh my God, you want to start chewing. And so everything that's on that grateful list just becomes the thing that I remember, it becomes the thing that tightens like that screw in my gut that just makes me need to run. And what happens is, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it suddenly occurs to me on that random day that a drink would really fix this, And the problem is that I don't realize, and I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous, or at least around it, for decades, but I don't realize that that's the powerlessness that you guys are talking about. I don't realize that's the step 1 thing that you guys keep telling me, because it doesn't feel powerless. It doesn't feel like Days of Wine and Roses where Jack Lemmon is breaking the flower pots and running around and trying to find the booze and stealing it from his old lady and getting locked in the sanitarium. It doesn't feel like that. What it feels like is I changed my mind. It feels like I suddenly, every reason that I have to know, because I've got that list in my front pocket, my relapse prevention plan under my arm, every reason that I know why drinking is a bad idea, suddenly seems stupid. It seems like I'm being dramatic. So this mental obsession that you guys talk about, I don't feel obsessed. I don't feel crazy. I feel like I changed my mind. And the relief that you guys talk about, that comes from me on the way to the liquor store. I get relief just knowing relief is coming. Because for the first time in forever, my brain is quiet, it's coming. I'm about to be okay. I'm about to be able to breathe again. Because for me, sobriety is just a period of time of just, You guys say 1 day at a time, and I hear that's the longest phrase ever. 1 day at a time. 1 day, just forever, And make it to midnight. Midnight is 396 hours from now. That's a long time. And the problem is you guys with the thing that I don't realize is like, I think that you guys feel the same way that I do. You're just better at hiding it, or you are good at having a sucky life better. You know, like I don't realize that something has changed for you. You know, I think that you're just better at suffering. And I think about the way that I feel in that moment. And I can't imagine feeling that way 5 more minutes, much less 5 hours, how they sit till freaking midnight. Like I can't feel that way for another second. So my entire life is this revolving door, which really just amounts to running from pain. I stay in Alcoholics Anonymous until I can't stand it another minute, and I go get loaded. And I drink my life away, and I I stay out there until it's so painful I can't stand it another minute, because I really know when I do the sober thing it's going to suck too. So when that's really bad, I come back. And when that's really bad, I go. And so my entire life is just this long, drawn out, like circling the drain cycle of running from pain. And the interesting, ironic thing about that is that I didn't realize it until, I took the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which have hung in every meeting, on every wall of every meeting I've ever gone to since 1990, whatever, when I first started doing this thing. And by this thing, I just mean walking in your doors, is that the only thing that has ever forced me to change in my entire life was the one thing that I've always been running away from, and that was pain. In Alcoholics Anonymous, you guys showed me how to, look at it, pray about it, take some action on it. But that never occurred to me. Like, one of my oldest friends in Alcoholics Anonymous, when I finally came back, she said, Becky, put your sneakers away, your running days are over. Like, I am a runner. I cut and run. I run. And everything that you guys are asking me to do does not come naturally to me. I don't know if it does to anybody, but it certainly doesn't for me. It goes against every fiber of my being, and certainly even every fiber of my upbringing. It wasn't that I was raised with no values. I was simply raised with unique ones, maybe. You are not unique in here. Only in Alcoholics Anonymous can you talk about, all your heroes are, like outlaws and felons, and everybody's nodding and smiling, But, you don't admit anything. This whole, get honest thing, I was a firm, my MO is deny it to the very end. I don't care if they find you standing there with this smoking gun in your hand. You just were wandering along and picked it up. You never admit anything. Rehab is for quitters. And you don't write anything down because that stuff can get you in trouble. So I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and you guys are asking me to do stuff that goes against my very nature. So instead of saying that, or instead of saying I'm afraid of that, I lie and tell you I'm good. I lie and tell you I'm fine. I lie and tell you I am great, and the recovery house is awesome. We already did all that. But it's just easier to tell you I'm okay. Because as soon as I get in here, on day 0, I'm absolutely broken and begging for help. But on day 5, by day 5, maybe if I'm that lucky, it really matters to me what you think of me. It really matters to me how I look to you. So I care more about my face than I do saving my butt in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so when you ask me how I'm doing, I don't tell you the truth. Because by the time I get here, you are the only people left that will still put up with me. And I really want you to like me, even though I don't like you. Or at least I say that, I really, really, really need to belong here. So it's not that long of a book. There's not that many things on, there's not that many slogans. It's not that hard to memorize. And so I become a wonderful parrot in Alcoholics Anonymous, and you ask me what step I'm working, and I say 1, 2, and 3, working on my 90 and 90, and I got it down, and we go around the circle, and I read 5 paragraphs ahead to make sure I sound good when I read, and while you're talking, you might be saying something that could save my life, but I'm too busy thinking about the great share that I'm about to give when it's my turn, so I'm not listening. And I was approached by by a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous who asked me, Becky, how long are you going to be in a 12-step program without actually taking the 12 steps? I was so offended, how dare you? And I was like, and I finally got broken enough. And what happened to me is on August 31st of 2015, I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous because it was the only place in the world that would have me, and I didn't come back here willingly. I got into a little bit of a legal jam, and it was all their fault. And I called the only person in the world who still answered the phone for me, and that was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And actually, I sent him a text, and it was so me. I told him that I had just been arrested and that I wasn't sure if I needed bail money yet, but I would let him know. And thank you very much. I'm sure there were, and it was just that. Like, the assumption was there, put on your cape and come rescue me, and I know what that means. Like, that means I have to go back to treatment, and that means I have to do this thing again. So I do, and I go off to the, I've graduated from rehabs to psych wards by now, so I go off to the psych ward, and they only have 3 requirements for you to leave, and I forget what 2 of them were, but one of them was you had to have a home. They don't discharge you homeless. So I lied and said I had one, and then I realized that I'd lied myself into homelessness. So I called up that same guy that, did not need to bail me out. I'm sure he was really happy about that. And they let me out on my own. And he helped me find a place to live. And it was the first time in a really long time that I did something in Alcoholics Anonymous that I didn't want to do. He set me up on an air mattress in a friend of ours' office. And like a week later, I get this notice where I have to go to court to lose my daughter. They had the audacity to think that I wasn't, she wasn't safe with me. And I wasn't going to go. I was just going to go get loaded, because that's what I do. I run. And Alcoholics Anonymous rallied around me, and they convinced me to go, and they convinced me and I had this moment where for the first time in my life I realized it wasn't about me, it was about taking care of this kid, and that maybe, just maybe, I'm not her best option, which was horrifying to think. And I show up in that courtroom absolutely certain I'm going to lose my kid, and what I find there instead is at least a dozen members of Alcoholics Anonymous that showed up for me, which really blew my mind. And I didn't lose my daughter that day, even though I could have and probably should have. And I remember looking at my friend and saying, if I ever doubt that there's a personal God in my life again, I want you to, remind me of this and punch me in the face, kind of thing. And because I always had this problem with this God idea. Growing up in that crazy life, growing up in that crazy house, I used to go to this little corner Baptist church. And I'd go up to the front pew every day when they would do the altar call, and I'd kneel and I'd pray to this God that you guys believed in, and I would pray like beam me up Scotty type prayers, like God to save me and get me out of here, and I'll do good and I'll be good, and I had this kind of like childlike idealized view of God, that the Santa Claus kind of view. And because I prayed on Tuesday and didn't get the answer I wanted on Thursday, I'd come up with either 2 answers. Either God isn't real or I don't rank. Because look at my life. And so I became disillusioned by this God thing, and I became my own God, and booze became my God, and whoever was paying my rent became my God. And there was a lot of gods in my life. The only one that wasn't God in my life was God. And that was kind of how I ran for a really long time. So when I come back to Alcoholics Anonymous, I know you guys are telling me it's God, and I would have been happier if you told me it was the Easter Bunny, because I just was not into this whole God thing, like, and like I'm like, nothing would make my insides cringe more than like you're watching some kind of awards show and they thank Jesus, like, thank you, Lord, and I'm like, how do we know God is an Eagles fan? I mean, I know he is, but like, how do we know, and like, what about this, and whatever, and so I had more questions than answers, and but you said it was God, so I read your books, and I read God on a Harley and Never Alone and Sermon on the Mount, and I went to all your churches, and I faked your prayers, and I did the parrot thing even in church, you know, and you would say to me that your relationship with God was the most important thing in your life. And first off, I didn't believe you, because that seems ridiculous, because it's the Easter Bunny. But I would say it too. Yes, God is great, and I am so grateful, and God is the most important relationship in your life. Really? And I'll be again forever. I love the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. Save my life on a daily basis. Like, thank God for good members of Alcoholics Anonymous that can see right through that. You know, and I'm praying to ceiling tiles, and I'm faking it, and I'm faking it and not making it, and I'm really faking it. And I think I'm faking it well, because you have to like me. And one of my good friends came up to me and he said, Becky, you have been a liar your entire life. How about instead of lying about this experience that clearly you are not having with this God that you do not believe in, you take the rest of these actions outlining these steps. And I promise you that if you do that, when you come to the end, you will have a God that you know. Like, stop lying. No one believes you. Get in the back seat of the car. Let's go. So he gave me permission, basically, to be honest. You know, and so instead of trying to convince you of something, I just shut up and got in the car and went where they were going. You know, I didn't get sober in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I got sober in the back seat of a car, surrounded by people that were in the mix, that were doing this thing, that were going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous to be of service. And what happened in those car rides is they were talking about the amends they were making. They were talking about the fears they had. They were talking about the steps they took and the actions they were doing, and how God was the central part of their life today. And I'm in the back seat, and I have to shut up because I can't contribute to that conversation, because none of those things are true for me. And for the first time in my life, I really wanted them to be, because these people were sober and happy at the same time, which was a foreign concept to me. And I really wanted them to like me. You know, it's funny, we talk about our defects of character, and I don't work on my defects. I just ask God to take all of me and use what he wants, and take what he needs, and what, you know, I just say the prayer. But the same thing that had me pick up my first drink, that what will they think of me? That same defect of character got me to write a fourth step. That same defect of character got me to hit my knees in a third step prayer in like a Denny's with like 20 people and a whole bunch of people. I was sure looking at us like we were crazy. You know, that same defect of character got me to make amends to my father. You know, that same defect of character, what will they think, got me to walk up to that new girl when I really didn't want to, because I was sure there was someone more qualified to help her. Because don't you know I'm still crazy? But I was afraid my sponsor would fire me. You know, I didn't take these actions from any virtue. It wasn't like, I am so spiritual, I'm going to make amends today. And I would even like to say that I did it, because, and sometimes you'll hear me say that I took these actions because I knew it was life or death. Which sounds good. It sounds at least a little more noble than I was afraid my friends would stop talking to me. Which is really closer to the truth. Because when I'm taking these actions, I've already been in and around Alcoholics Anonymous so long, I'm sure that it won't work. So I'm not making amends because I think it'll keep me sober, even though the book says it will. Because I don't believe that. I'm sure I'm going to drink again, it's just a matter of time. But in the meantime, until I do, I'd like to not be alone, so I'm going to do what you're telling me so you'll still be my friend. And the amazing thing that I learned through that, it's, I've heard it described as like gravity. You know, like I don't have to believe in gravity for it to be real. You know, if John and I both jump off the roof, John, hi honey, you know, I'll let you believe in gravity. You know, if John and I both, you know, take a swan dive off the roof of this church, and he believes in gravity and I don't, like both our heads are going to explode when we hit the concrete. It doesn't matter what I believe in. And for me, the steps have proven to be the same thing. I don't have to believe in the actions I'm taking to take them. You know, God does not need my permission to be real. I thought he did. You know, he also doesn't need my permission to work in my life. My entire drunken first step experience led me to this moment. You know, and I was not a willing participant in it. You know, but in what I've discovered is that in God's universe, nothing is wasted. In my universe, too, of God. Anyway, you know, so I take these steps with disbelief, but I take them, and for the first time I realized that, like, it's been a while since I considered suicide. That's my spiritual awakening. I haven't wanted to kill myself in quite some time. You know, come on, let's go to a meeting, and want me to sponsor you? And I'm still crazy. You know, I'm running around with this group that are really excited. They're on fire for Alcoholics Anonymous, so I'm getting in the car and I'm driving all over the country, and I'm not paying my bills, but I'm getting in the car and driving around. You know, I'm full board AA, because for the first time in my life, sober and happy belong in the same pocket. And I'm nuts, but I'm sober and happy. And this woman was crazy enough to ask me if I would sponsor her. And what was so nuts about that, and at this point, like, I still, like, I don't have this God moment yet, you know, I don't have this amazing God awareness like the book talks about. What I have is this awareness that I don't want to kill myself, and I don't want to drink, and I'm relatively happy. And so I'm certain that my sponsor is magic, because I think I'm doing all the same stuff that I have done, and I think that I've been in AA, and I'm still in AA, and I've had a lot of sponsors, and I've written so many first steps, I've got them like memorized, you know, but it's like I'm only honest with you up until the second that I think you're judging me, and then you'll never get another honest word out of me, you know, so it's like fourth step light, you know, it's like, you know, it's what do I think you want to hear. But I thought that was sufficient, and so when I'm going through these steps again and I'm taking all these actions, I don't connect the dots in any way other than I'm certain that my sponsor's magic. And that's why I'm sober. And so, which propelled me to do anything else that she told me, so it was convenient, because if you're magic and you tell me to do something, then I'll do it. And then what happens is this woman asked me to sponsor her. And so I said yes, because I was afraid of being fired. And I take her through the steps. And we read when it says read, and we pray when it says pray, and I give her the same directions that I was given, and we do the same stuff that I did with my sponsor. And because it's all about me, and this is my story, it became my spiritual experience, you know, thank God, or it could have worked out a different way. You know, Dee gets sober. You know, and the lights come back on in her eyes, and she gets her family back, and she takes these actions, and she has this experience, and she becomes lit up with Alcoholics Anonymous and the power that she found here. And that was when my friends, that's when it came full circle for me. Because I know I'm not magic. I know that I'm still the girl that can't figure out how to, like, pay the easy pass when we drive over the bridge, you know, like, you know, and going any lengths, you know, you're supposed to pay that toll, and I know I'm not magic, and I know that I don't have any more power in me than she has in her. And that was when my friend who called me a liar, when what he said came full circle for me. That was the moment that God became real for me. Because I knew the power that got her sober was not of mine. And the amazing thing from that moment forward, like, you couldn't stop me then. You know, like, this thing became real for me, and it was like all the dots became connected, and that was that spiritual experience moment that we talk about. And I couldn't sponsor enough people. I couldn't, you know, I was bringing, you know, meetings. I got sober in Philadelphia, and I was bringing meetings into you know, recovery houses, and sponsoring the world, and running around and saving the universe, you know, one drunk at a time, and then this really cool thing happened that kind of flipped my world all upside down. Is that this daughter that never wanted anything to do with me, through this immense process and through just living this sober life, she became active in my life again, because I showed up even when it wasn't convenient. I showed up like a mom should. I didn't wait for the parade. I just showed up because she needed a ride to practice, and I didn't wait for the accolades. I just showed up because she needed me. And I was never able to do that before. My children were always viewed as like extensions of me. And she wasn't that. And so I rebuilt this relationship with her. And so when her life kind of blows up through stuff going on with her dad, I was her best option, which hasn't been the case since, 2004. And so she asked if she can come and live with me and John. And so we uproot ourselves from like this AA bubble that we got sober in, and kind of like this like recovery house community where we knew everybody and everybody knew us, and we have a routine and a life. And we picked up and we moved back to where I was originally from, and back down to the shore. We live in South Jersey now. And we bought a house, and we got full custody of my daughter, which is amazing. About a year-ish ago, a year and a half ago, I was awarded full custody by the same judge that took her from me years prior. That was a pretty cool experience. And I get this girl back because she wants me, and I'm her best option. And we moved to the middle of nowhere. Like the first meeting that John and I walked into, because before we moved, I was trying to like kind of show him around so he'd know what we were walking into. And he was like, "Where are all the new people?" And I was like, "Oh, that was him. You missed him. Like there was one, that guy." And we got sober in this area where like you couldn't swing a stick without finding 20 people to help, and it's easy to get kind of spiritually lazy when you can rip the heads off of new people and just drink them, and instead now, like, which will ensure immunity from a drink, but might not help you grow spiritually anyway. Like there isn't always a lot of God in that, and for me anyway, and so I've really had to do a lot of back to the basis kind of stuff, and by that I mean like walking up to you and asking you how you're doing and introducing myself, and are you new, would you like a cup of coffee, and where are you from, and all that stuff that I really hate, which is because it's talking, and interacting and that awkwardness, and the book gives really pretty easy, clear instructions on how to do that, and I'm doing that again, and it also says be quick to see where religious people are right. So that God that I was sure must be the Easter Bunny, or that I must not rank in, I'm growing that relationship, and I joined a church and I attend it, not just in name. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a member of a home group, and I'm also a member of my church. And I show up there, and for a long time in AA, I had this God of kind of relativism. And by that I mean like somebody would say to me like, "Hey Becky, have you ever thought about quitting cussing?" And I'd be like, "You get to pick your own God here. Mine doesn't care." And so like if I can pick what my God is and what my God isn't, for me what that is really just spiritual license to get away with doing whatever I want to do. Because I get to decide what God cares about. So for me, it was really important to have that bar set not by my own standards, and I fall short daily in that relationship, but at least I know the direction I'm heading. And because in our book, it's really clear that this whole thing is about the growth and maintenance of a spiritual condition. Because I suffer from a spiritual malady that I try to solve every other way. And one of my favorite things that I hear a lot of things in AA, and I love Alcoholics Anonymous more than anything, and I'm really judgmental though, so I judge a lot of it, and I work on that daily. But it's funny, one of them is, people say all the time, like, we'll love you until you can love yourself. And that sounds really warm and fuzzy, and it sounds like it should belong like on a plaque on the wall, or a Hallmark card or something, but like that just isn't my experience. Like me loving me and me thinking about me was never my problem. Like I'm really good at thinking about me, and if you read my 4th step, you would absolutely realize that, me thinking highly of myself was not an issue. But what you guys did taught me how instead. You didn't love me until I could love myself. What you did is you loved me when I was really unlovable. You loved me when I was robbing baskets and hitting on your men and not showing up and not being accountable and doing all the stuff that... You loved me when I was wreaking havoc in Alcoholics Anonymous. You loved me when I was abandoning my children and not showing up and going in and out of treatment and wrecking cars and wrecking lives, and you loved me. You know, and I'd walk in the door and you'd buy me dinner and you'd clean me up and you'd pat me on the head and ask me how you could be helpful. And by doing that, you taught me how to love. You know, you taught me how to love the new guy. You taught me how to show up. You taught me who I want to be and don't want to be in Alcoholics Anonymous. And because of that, no matter how far down the scale anybody has gone, I can meet you right where you are. You know, like, did you come to Alcoholics Anonymous because like you had a hard time leaving happy hour? I get you. You know, did you come to Alcoholics Anonymous because you sold your soul and your children for that last drink? I get you. You know, and we have an answer for that. The answer is the same. You know, I'm the same alcoholic that I was in, 1980 whatever, when I was 15 years old and decided I should never drink again and did anyway. The only difference is the consequences and the prices that I paid. You know, but that's alcohol. It's kind of like how pregnant are you? You know, like alcoholism is alcoholism. You know, and I suffered from alcoholism, and I can suffer from alcoholism on any given day. You know, I'm going to treat this thing one way or another. It's like the elephant in the room. It just won't be ignored. You know, and I'm either going to treat it with spiritual principles or I'm going to treat it in some way that's far more destructive. There's that line in We Agnostics, you know, where it says if you've decided that you have this thing, you might be suffering from a condition that only a spiritual experience can conquer. And the reason that I know that I'm suffering from a condition that only a spiritual experience is able to conquer is because I tried every other way of conquering it. You know, if there was a psych med or a psychiatrist or a man or a job or a man or anything that could fix this thing other than Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd have been sober for a whole lot longer than I am. Because I spent most of my life looking for door number 3. I absolutely did not want the answer to be God. You know, I didn't want to have to wrap my mind around that. And just like with the running from pain thing, I spent my entire life running from the one thing that could save me. You know, and he's not the one that left. You know, when I look at my experience, that's painfully clear. You know, I can turn my back on God on any given day and run this thing right in the ground, and I'll be right back to where I was, which is running until the wheels fall off and pushing at 50 feet, because that's how I roll when I'm on my own. So I don't like to go over the hour, so I'm going to shut up now. But thank you very much for having me out. It's been a great night.
All right, thank you very much, Becky, for coming here and sharing that message. A couple of quick announcements and we'll wrap it up here. The food and fellowship starts here at 8 o'clock, so if you want to get something to eat, you want to come to hang out, you want to get involved with this group, we're here 8 o'clock every week. Show up early. There's always a meeting after the meeting. If you're new or if you're struggling, grab somebody after the meeting. If you want to help us out with some service work, we could always use help putting away the chairs. We gotta leave. Or is it all the chairs are going away tonight, so don't worry about setting them up or putting away all the chairs tonight. It's customary for us to thank our speakers. They come here on their own time and expense to share their experience with us, so it's customary for us to form a line to thank our speakers. And if you care to join us, we have a nice way of closing. Thank you.